And why is it important? And what does that mean for the average individual? Well, you manifest whether you believe it or not. You don't have to believe in it. You manifest, okay, whether you think so or not, whether you believe in it or not. And what happens is sometimes you unintentionally place yourself in an undesirable position because you don't have control over your manifestations. Now, how do you get manifestation control? How do you control your manifestations? Well, that's the key. So the key to everything is, and we have our book here that we're going to mention, and we're going to talk about the key to manifestation. The first pillar is vocalization. So there's affirmations, meditation, vocalization, visualization. But the vocalization process that's detailed in my book is probably, and everybody gets a free book today. Everybody gets a free book. All you have to do is email me, okay? Just send me your email or email me, junior@hereforyoulifecoaching.com, and you get a book, okay? PDF copy of this, okay? And what it talks about is how the voice can calm, how the voice calms you from the inside, okay? It produces hormones, oxytocin, endorphins, through your neurotransmitters, which in turn starts to calm you so that inside you settle from anxiety, fear, guilt, shame, all of those emotions, all of the negative emotions. And what happens when this happens? Well, then you start to think clearer. Then you start to make better decisions. Guess what happens when you make better decisions? You get better results. Okay, so the other thing that you need to know is, in order to get better results consistently, you have to change the seeds in your garden, in the subconscious garden. Okay, it's about your subconscious. Okay, so in other words, if you weed the garden, if you pull out the undesired thoughts, okay, the undesired predominant thoughts, because that's what it is. So your predominant thoughts form your beliefs. Okay, a belief is a thought you keep thinking. Now, if you change those thoughts, you change the beliefs. You start to weed the garden, okay, the subconscious garden. And what do? Well, you plant positive seeds in there, and those seeds grow, okay? So stay away from anything that makes you fearful, okay? If you have a television, turn it off or get rid of it. I haven't had a television in years and years and years, okay? But here's the thing, right? We scroll, right? We scroll, so we see stuff, okay? But this process right here, detailed in my book, The Universal Law of Attraction and Singing, okay, which is free today for you, okay? We're giving it to you free. It sells on Amazon. It does really, really well on Amazon, okay? But we're giving PDF copies for free. Why? Because I want you to know, before I check out of this planet, I want you to know that your voice can heal you. Okay, and we don't use any medical claims or medical terms, that kind of thing. We don't make medical claims. But what we do say is that when you're clear in here, and that's what your voice can do, when you're clear in here, guess what happens? You're clear out here. Okay, in other words, if you clear this up first, your life is clear out here. Does it solve all of your problems? Probably not. Okay, but here's what it prevents. It prevents you from being a participant in things you don't want to participate in. What am I talking about? I'm talking about becoming the observer. Okay? You didn't come here for struggle. You didn't even come here for effort. Okay? You didn't come here to be a debt slave. Okay? You didn't come here for that. Life can flow effortlessly for you. Okay? Life doesn't happen to you. If you think that everything is happening to you like this from the outside and it's happening to you, you're suffering from victim mentality. Life unfolds for you. It unfolds from within because the kingdom is within. God lives in here. You're partners with God. Okay, Jesus Christ told us the kingdom is within. And this is part of that kingdom idea. Okay, because everything is in here. There's nothing out here. There's no out there. The only thing out there is nature and things from someone else is in here. And if someone else can design a building, if someone else can design an automobile, if someone else can design, I don't know, a frying pan, so can you. Okay? You just have to apply yourself. Okay, so when I was young, right, I didn't have people telling me I couldn't do stuff. I had people doing the opposite, right? So people were telling me how, oh, you're so smart, you can do anything, you can do anything, you can do anything. So I started thinking about that, like I could do anything. Like I just have to choose what to do, right? But here's the thing, for a long time, like in my 20s, I had a very turbulent 20s, right? Very turbulent. Good morning, Jay. I had a very turbulent 20s because I was trying to figure out how do I do this? How do I become an entertainer? How do I do this? How do I get money? How do I build a business? How do I do all this stuff? I see all these other guys and everybody has stuff and like, how do I do it? How do I do it? How do I do it? The how is God's job. Once I learned this concept that the how is God's job, right? It has you do one thing. It has you walk by faith and not by sight. And what does that mean? Most people seek with their eyes because they have eyes. Okay, faith is in here. Faith is built in here. What is faith? Faith is knowing, okay? Not thinking, but knowing. There's a difference. You have to know like you know something's going to happen. Something good is going to happen. I was just telling Jay this morning the story about when things started happening for me and the doors started opening. By the third day on this radio thing I did, the doors opened wide for me. Now, if you know what that looks like, if you understand the concept of the conscious, subconscious, and superconscious, if you understand the concept of the kingdom is within, you can see the doors opening. Why? Because you have a greater sense of awareness. Okay? So the three states of awareness, the conscious, subconscious, superconscious, it's all in here. But unless you are able to identify it when it happens, you won't see it. And you won't see it as your blessings. You will see it as coincidence. You will see it as something else. But God is real. God is very real. Okay? But it's not like they tell you in church. It's kind of the same, but they don't tell you the whole truth. They don't give you the truth about, the scriptures that are actually referring to the subconscious. Those that have will be given more. Those that don't have more will be taken. What are they talking about? They're talking about your subconscious and according to your beliefs. And it's talking about abundance and lack. So those that have will be given more. Why? Because they believe in abundance, because they exercise abundance, because they're coming from abundance, because they think thoughts of abundance. What about people that don't have and they get less? So it's like they say it another way, right? They say the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. It's mindset. It's all mindset. There's a poor mindset and there's a wealth mindset. Which mindset do you have? Which mindset will you choose? If you choose a poor mindset, like life happens to you this way, right? Then things happen to you. More things will happen to you. Why? Because now your subconscious has learned, okay, things happen to me. So it's going to show you evidence of things happening to you rather than for you. Life unfolds for you. Okay, so based upon what you're thinking, okay, which forms your beliefs, your predominant thoughts. Okay, if that's your predominant thought, guess what happens? More things happen to you. Okay, so in my book, I'm gonna share with you. It's a very easy to read book, and we made it very inexpensive. Everybody on the live gets it free today. Send me your email, okay, and I'll send you a copy. So here's the ego and accomplishment. Okay, so this is chapter 6, the ego and accomplishment. What prevents you from accomplishing things as far as the ego is concerned? How does that work? Well, the ego always thinks it knows better. The ego always forces this way, my way, this way, that way. So how do you achieve when your ego is in charge. Can you achieve? Yeah, sure you can. A lot of people achieve a lot with their ego. I used to work in an industry that was fueled by ego. Okay, it's called the entertainment industry. It's also a hub for narcissism. So you work with a lot of narcissists when you're in that environment. Okay, and humans are conducive to that environment. So at one point I was like, oh boy, am I becoming a narcissist, right? Well, here's how you can tell who is actually more. So everybody has some narcissism in them. You need to know that. Okay, but when you predominantly go narcissistic, that's when problems come just to the surface. Okay, so in other words, the only thing that you can look for actually that will tell you that the person is not a narcissist is if they have compassion. Okay, if they are compassionate, if they have compassion, if they have empathy, they're not true narcissists. Okay, so I had to seriously think about this, because whatever environment you're in, you blend right into the environment. Okay, and that's why they tell you, show me your 5 closest friends and I'll tell you who you are. And the reason they say that is because we're so conducive to our environments. Okay, we just blend right in, and pretty soon we start speaking like each other. We start hanging out, telling the same jokes, the same kind of jokes, the same thing. And, your vibe attracts your tribe. So whatever vibration you're on, if you're on a negative vibration, you will attract that tribe. If you're on a positive vibration, you will attract that tribe. But I'm here to tell you that you can change your vibration. Okay? It's universal law. You can change your vibration. So how does that work? Well, start by being happy. A lot of people say, well, I have all these bills, I can't be happy. Well, I have all this, I have this, and make excuses. Just know that when you make excuses, whether you're expressing them through your voice or not, if you're speaking about them, it's going into your subconscious. If you're thinking about it, it's going into your subconscious. The more you think about it, the more you become it. The more you speak it, the more you become it. So good morning, Leo. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. Thank you. So how does this all work? Well, your subconscious will show you evidence. You didn't come to struggle. You weren't born to struggle. That was not the plan. Your mom and dad did not have you and go, okay, you know what? We're going to bring a baby into this world to struggle just like us. That never happens. That never happens. I've never even heard of that happening. Ever. So you didn't come to struggle. So if you are struggling, guess what? You're bringing it upon yourself. We all make bad decisions, myself included. I make bad decisions all the time. All the time. Sometimes we trust the wrong people. Sometimes we overextend ourselves. Sometimes we underextend ourselves. Sometimes we should have done more. Right? Sometimes we should have been there for someone. So when you put yourself in these situations, what happens? Self-judgment. You pass judgment on yourself. God does not punish. God is love. God does not punish. God never ever punishes. Let me put it to you this way. Would you bring a child into the world only to test them all the time? Only to put them on trial all the time? Like, okay, life is one big trial. And then we're going to judge you after that. And then if you're good, then we'll allow you to go through the gates of heaven. And then if you're bad, we're going to throw you into the fire. Those are human concepts. Okay? Those are human concepts. All right? And then let's look at the idea that, okay, if you all belong to this club, you're okay. You belong to this club or this club over here, right? You're not going to heaven, man. No hope for you. You need to go with this certain club. And this, it's ridiculous, right? Okay. The kingdom is within. Jesus Christ told us the kingdom is in here. The kingdom is not in your church. I know someone who is very highly religious, right? Like super highly religious. And she was talking to me about the fishers of men parable in the Bible. And she said that she wanted to wear the t-shirt, right? Because then she would recruit more people into the kingdom. And I said, where exactly is this kingdom? And she goes, oh, believers. And then I said, the kingdom is in here. All right? And then she was like, oh, and then she stopped. She had to think about that, right? See, what I'm saying is, right, we take a lot for granted. We have eyes that see, so we look out here for the solutions. Our eyes look out there for the solutions. The solutions are in here, okay? When you seek, and this is why they say, walk by faith and not by sight. Because when you walk by sight, you're looking out here for solutions. All your solutions are in here. All you have to do is ask. Okay? Then with faith, believe, and then receive. It's in every holy book. It's not just in the Bible. They say it in a different way, but it's in every holy book because it's talking about the human being. It's talking about how you were designed. So the question is, are you happy? If the answer is yes, you're good. If the answer is no, then all you have to do is seek. First, identify what the problem is. Then accept the fact that you have that issue going on, okay? Then ask. And then believe that you will receive the answer. And then receive. You will receive the answer. But it's all done in here. You don't need a church. You don't need a temple. You don't need a synagogue. It's not about going there or there or there. I knew this girl once, and she said she had to get away to solve her problems. So she went to Bali. And she woke up in Bali and still had her problems. It's not about running. You cannot run. You can run all you want, You can run all you want, but wherever you go, there you are. You're going to have to live this life. You're going to have to make the best of this. Some people feel that they're a prisoner in here. The prison is here. When you change this, you change everything. When you change this, money comes. When you change this, businesses get built. When you change this, love happens. But you have to change it. So, what are you not happy about? Alignment is key. You have to align the conscious, subconscious, and superconscious. Because otherwise, it's like having a machine that doesn't really work right. It's not optimized. It's not performing at its full potential. If you're thinking good thoughts, and then you counteract it with bad thoughts, what am I talking about? Well, like you get an idea, right? And your idea is like, maybe I should start a side hustle. Maybe I should start a business. And then your left brain, okay? You normally get your intuitive thought from your right brain. Your left brain starts saying, well, yeah, that other time you tried to do something and yeah, it didn't work, right? And you have this internal dialogue with yourself. And the negative self-talk kicks in. And what does it do? It slowly rationalizes you out of your idea. I'm here to say, trust your crazy ideas. A lot of people express their ideas in front of others, and what do? They go, "Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy." The majority of my clients are always women. Always have been, always will be. Because they seek confidence. They seek confidence. And you know what? They trust their crazy ideas. And you know what? They get crazy ideas, huge ideas. And they manifest crazy ideas. How does this happen? It happens because they can multitask. So when they start to manifest things, it comes quickly and plentifully and easily. Sometimes that means money. Sometimes that means degrees. I know women with multiple degrees. I know one girl that does work. She works with me. She works for me sometimes. And she works with me sometimes. She has so many certifications. She's awesome. So many certifications. I said, well, I asked her, I said, well, why so many certifications? She goes, well, when I get bored, I just go and get certified for something. That's a good use for her time. You see? And one day she is going to manifest huge, huge. All she has to do is remain happy. All you have to do is maintain happiness. How do you do that? Change your thoughts. Thoughts bring emotions. The time to stop a negative emotion is not when you're feeling the emotion. It's when you're thinking the thought. Because the emotion follows. There are people who keep themselves bound in the physical matrix, okay? Because the real matrix is here, okay? But they're bound in the physical matrix because they cannot surrender their thoughts. Okay, they cling to the thought. One thought brings another thought. Okay, that's what I talked about yesterday in the negative spiral. Okay, you have one negative thought, then you start to worry. Then you start to worry, and your imagination, the right brain, starts to build it up, and pretty soon you have a monster. But it started with one thought. Then you get the variables, the what ifs. Most people use the what ifs in fear. Fear-based what ifs. What if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? What if the other thing goes wrong? What if this happens? What if that happens? What if it... And pretty soon there's a monster in here. It's huge. What if this happened? What if that? I don't know too many people who sit around and go, oh my God, what if I make $10 million on this? What if I make $100,000 on this? What if I make $50,000 on this? Right? It's always about what goes wrong. What could go wrong? If you're asking yourself that question, what could go wrong with something, then you're focusing on what you don't want rather than what you want. When you just tell yourself, everything's going to be cool, everything's going to be fine, everything's going to be okay, everything's going to work out for my best interest. Everything is going to work out for me. Everything is going to play out for me just fine. And then when things happen, you're going to look at it as a coincidence and go, whew, man, that was close. That was close. I almost, right? I almost ended up in a catastrophe. You have to stop thinking like that. Way back a long time ago, I had this business. It was part of my production company. the first company. A lot of people know me as a voice teacher, and people think that my singing school was my first company. It was my second company. My first company was my production company. So we were doing jingles, we were doing voiceovers for radio and television commercials. Oh, wow, thank you. Thank you. Who did that? Leo. Thank you, Leo. Thank you. And we were doing voiceovers for companies. We were doing jingles. We were doing a lot of audio production. We were doing a lot of music for our production company. It was called Imua Productions. It was years and years ago. It doesn't exist anymore. It actually does exist, but we changed the name. It's called VMAC Consultants now. But anyway, that was my first company. And way back then, we didn't know how to form the company. We didn't know what to do, okay, as far as the how. We knew what to do as far as the work, okay? Now, a lot of people get stuck when they start trying to think about the how. They get stuck, okay? Because they're going, okay, I want to start a business, but I don't know how. People come to me for that all the time, and I help them start their business. In fact, I'm helping 2 people start their companies right now. And this one guy is like getting huge results, big results. At VMAC Consultants, we say we bring people together and make things happen, because blessings come through others from God, through others, all the time, all day long, 365, 24/7. So we were trying to figure out the how, and that kind of delayed us a lot. So we went into all these different avenues of production. There was audio production, there was video production. We started focusing on different things. And then we started this on-call business where we would provide voiceovers in an on-call format. So when people called the hotel, it would say press 1 for this, press 2 for that, and we had a couple of hotel accounts and stuff like that. And so we were looking for, the how. We were trying to figure out how. And in that process, it took a long time. So our production company was just very limited. Why? Because we were limited. We were limited here. The universal law of correspondence tells us that whatever is in here is reflected out here. If you're limited here, then you're limited here. Your bank account is limited. Your business is limited. My business was limited because I was limited in here. Because I thought I needed to know how. Well, in 2007, that changed. I started doing my deep dives. Okay, talk about rabbit holes, like hundreds and hundreds of hours. Okay, they say it takes 10,000 hours to do a business, right? You need 10,000 hours to make this a success. I probably went through 30,000 hours in 2 years, at least. Maybe a little less than 30,000. At least 15, at least half of that, guaranteed. And this was every day, study every day, in addition to my work. So by 2010, I went to this feng shui class, and the master was giving me my, Chinese horoscope, and he told me, he said, you're very natural at marketing. You're a natural for marketing. And I was like, wow, that's interesting, because we've been doing this, right? And now that I had my training, now that I had studied these things, I go, oh, okay, so I don't need to know how. So I'm like, okay, I'll just go for it, right? So print up all the collateral, business cards, stationery, all that stuff, right? My first client, and we already had the second business. Okay, so the second business was a singing school. We already had the second company. And we said, okay, we're going to take the production company, we're going to change it. We're going to make it a consulting company. Because the Feng Shui master said, well, this is easy for you. This is along the lines of who you are. And I'm like, okay. And I was just telling Jay this morning, somebody I used to work with, told me, he said, you can monetize just about anything. I'm like, yeah, pretty much. But what happened was, right, our biggest client came right out of the singing school. I didn't even know. Right? I was thinking like, okay, how are we going to do this consultant business? How are we going to take the production company, revamp it into a consultant company, and how are we going to do the same things we did in the production company, but then turn it into consulting so that we can do a wider variety of things or a broader scope within that company? I didn't know how. I just started it. And there were a couple of adjustments that needed to be made. And then what happened? Well, then one day, one of my clients from the singing school started expressing the fact that her husband was having a hard time. He was having a hard time because there were union people striking his business on the sidewalk, boycotting his business. So I asked her, well, what does he do? Or what's his job? She said, well, he's the district manager for this chain of stores. And I'm like, oh, I can help. And that's how I got my first client. But we were tested by fire. Because that first client was huge. It was a huge client. My point is, you don't have to know how. All you have to do is walk by faith, not by sight. Because when you're trying to figure out the how, you're looking with your eyes. You're searching out here. You're looking for data. You're looking for information. You're looking for education. You're looking for all these things. And it's not necessary for everything. If you're going to be a pharmacist, you need to know how. If you're going to be a doctor, you need to know how. If you're a lawyer, you need to know how. But mostly, God brings everything through others. And all you have to do is allow. So that's where the alignment comes in. And all I did was align the conscious, subconscious, and superconscious along the way. It was 2010, and we started VMAC Consultants. And in that same year, we started Here For You Life Coaching. So my point is, when you know what you want to do, okay, when you make up your mind what you want to do, that's the tough one. What do I want? In my case, I wanted to still do the production side. I still wanted to do that because it was fun. It was fun for me, right? I wanted to do that side. It still included music. I didn't want to just be a business consultant. That was boring to me. So I wanted to do all this stuff plus this stuff, and we put it all together. And we did business consulting. Our company wrote the most jingles of any Hawaii company, any Hawaii-based company. We created products for people. I mean, you can look it up. VMAC Consultants. There's a Facebook page with all of our work on it. There's an Instagram page with all of our work on it. You can search us online, VMAC Consultants. But my point is not to flex the company. My point is not to flex these things. My point is to tell you, you can do it too, but you don't need to know how. Take the steps. When you walk by faith, you're walking from in here with your eyes closed. You're doing your walk in here. You're doing your search in here. Affirmations, meditation, vocalization, and visualization, you do it in here. Why? Because God lives in here. Source lives in here. Your creator lives in here. Infinite intelligence lives in here. It all lives in here. It's not out there. For certain things, yes, you need to be certified. For certain things, yes, you need to pursue education for whatever it is. For certain things. If you're trying to figure out what you want to do, you need to take one of these. Okay, and then you need to take one of these. Okay, these are affirmations. This is a little bit different. This is subconscious training. Okay, this is telling your subconscious what you want. Your subconscious takes orders. It's an order taker. Okay, it's almost like your subconscious, is part of the military. It takes orders. Okay, you give it orders, but you give it orders with one of these. You condition it with one of these. You have to be consistent with one of these. I know it looks crazy. It looks crazy, right? Who does that? All successful people do this. The question is, what do you want? Do you want to be a success? Do you want to be successful? Do you want to have a greater degree of freedom? So take your pen and start writing. What do you want? You want to be confident? I am so happy and grateful now that I'm confident. Thank you. Write it once every morning. Speak it out loud once every evening. Affirmations, meditation, vocalization, visualization. If you apply those 4 pillars to anything, it has to happen. It has to happen. And yes, there are steps, and yes, there are procedures, and yes, there is networking. There's all of those things. But you need to apply these 4 principles. Because there's abundance and lack. And all the negative vibrations are rooted in fear. Lack is rooted in fear. If you're living in lack, it's because there is fear there. There is doubt there. Doubt and fear. So if you are doubting and if you are fearing, you're not getting as much as you could. I know people who are successful, who have money, who doubt themselves all the time. But they have people that work for them that believe in themselves. So then you have a balance. But then it goes like this. Okay, this is the windshield wiper syndrome, right? Good, bad, fear, confident, fear, confident, fear, confident. And most of us go through this. Why? Because we're humans. No such thing as all good. No such thing as all bad. There has to be a balance. But when you feel yourself moving into the negative, you can deliberately pull yourself towards the positive. And it may take a little while. Sometimes it takes a couple of hours. Sometimes it takes a few minutes. Sometimes it takes a few days. But you can pull yourself back. Because when you get stuck in lack, the tide goes out. When you get stuck in lack, bad things happen. The negative spiral we talked about earlier. One thing leads to another. Your imagination starts to work. It starts to build things bigger than they are. And limitation happens. Why? Because now there's fear. I meet these guys. They work out at the gym for years. I used to work out at this gym. And these big guys. And you would think that they were confident, right? They're confident with their weights. They're confident with their body. But inner confidence is different, and many of them were very insecure. How do you know this? Well, that little 4'11" Asian girl? She's got full control over this dude, right? That's not inner strength. That's not inner strength at all. So, the inner strength is developed by vocalization, and that's what's written about in this book. That's what I put in my book. It's about inner confidence, not exterior confidence, because the kingdom is within. God lives in here. So when you project your voice, or let's say it another way, when you find your voice, Or let's say it another way. When your voice begins to trigger the oxytocin and endorphins and calm you in here, you start to make better decisions. You start to make better choices. Why? Because there's no clutter in here now. Now you're clear. What happens when you're clear? Better decisions, better judgment. What happens with better judgment? Better results. Better choices, better results. Okay, so let's look at the subconscious tree again. The roots of the tree, your dominant thoughts, the things you think about the most, become beliefs. Look at it as your hard drive. Your operating system is the frontal lobe of your brain that thinks a million thoughts all day long. The predominant thoughts go in as programs to your subconscious. Can you wipe it clean and start all over? No. But you can weed the garden, okay? You can pull out the weeds in your subconscious. And you can plant seeds in your subconscious, new seeds, and you can start with your pen. And then you can speak it, and then you can meditate on it. If you're religious, you can pray. And if you pray, you're asking. If you're writing affirmations, you're asking. That's the ask part. If you know what you don't want, you know what you do want. It's the exact opposite. Esther Hicks says, you have to be ready to be ready to be ready. Think about that. Some people think they're ready. Some people want to be ready. And they do their affirmations for a couple of weeks, and then they go, it's not working. Put down the pen, it's not working. How long does it take? It takes 63 days minimum. 63 days minimum. That's what they don't tell you. Thank you so much, Caddy. Thank you, Caddy. It takes 63 days minimum to install a program in your subconscious. Why do the negative ones get there so quickly? Why do the negative emotions go straight into the subconscious so quickly? Well, because you repeat them. You repeat the thoughts. You repeat the words. Guard your speech. Be careful of what you say. Your subconscious does not know when you're cursing Bob, if you're cursing Bob or if you're cursing yourself. And then you wonder why you have low self-esteem. Why is that? I don't know. I don't feel good. When you strike out at others, your subconscious doesn't know if you're striking out at someone else or if you're striking out at you. When you marry intention with emotion, it will manifest in your life. It's guaranteed. It works on every human being. So ask yourself, first of all, what am I intending? What are my intentions? Secondly, how am I feeling about what I'm intending? Because if you take a bad intention and you marry it with a bad emotion, right? Because there's no such thing as mixing the two, right? You're going to get the bad result. It will manifest in your life. And the opposite is true as well. I've done this with thing after thing after thing. I've done this with company after company after company. I've done this with people after persons, if you want to put it that way. Because, yeah, you can manifest the right people. You can manifest, if it's an individual, then you just have to know that you can't violate individual choice. Someone's choice. Someone's freedom of choice. You can't violate that principle spiritually. So if you like the way Susie looks, or the way Johnny looks, and you write an affirmation, so happy and grateful now that Susie and I are going out. The only thing that has to happen is that Susie likes you too. That's it. Can you manifest that? Sure, I've done it all the time. I did it just recently. I just looked at a picture and oh wow, she's hot. Next thing you know, I know her. See? But if she didn't like me, wouldn't have happened. Same thing goes for you. Same thing goes for every human being. The reason I'm telling you this is because you can do it for you. Does prayer work? Absolutely. Yeah, I tested prayer a lot. I used to pray for off-the-wall things. Why? Well, because, people were telling me the kingdom is in here. You can do anything in here. So I used to pray for off-the-wall stuff. Guess what? Every single prayer came out. Every single one. Good or bad. Because when I say off the wall, sometimes I would just pray for weird stuff to see if it would happen. And then it happened. And I'm like, whoa. And that's why they say be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for. Your subconscious is that genie in the bottle. And you can rub that bottle if you go according to those 4 pillars that I discussed. And when you rub that bottle and the genie comes out, or let's say it another way, when you develop your subconscious so that it starts to respond to the orders you give, life changes. Life changes. It becomes like a game. It's like, okay, I want that, I want that, I want that. And then pretty soon you end up with too much stuff. So what I do for me is I give it away. I give things away. I don't resell things, I give them. Because when you give, you receive. If you always want to receive, then always give. Make it a habit. It was a natural thing for me. I don't know why. My mom told me, well, ever since you were a little kid, you gave away all your toys. You gave away, I'm like, well, but I felt sorry for them. They were poor. They didn't have toys. They had a lot of siblings. And when you have a lot of siblings, that doesn't happen. Not everybody gets a toy. So I was like, oh, here, take some of mine. Be happy. Some people would say, oh, well, that's lucky. No such thing as luck. You choose your mothers. You choose your mothers to enter into this realm called Earth. It's your choice. This is why you need to love your parents. Because you chose to be here. Believe it or not. I remember being younger and going, I didn't ask to be born. But yeah, I did. I just wasn't aware. Okay. But if you're going to live this life in a struggle, just know it's your subconscious that has learned to struggle. And when struggle is the theme of your life, the theme gets embedded in the subconscious, and the subconscious starts to show you proof of it. It goes, oh, okay, here's more struggle over here. Here's more struggle over here. Your reticular activating system and your brainstem filters out all the things that are not struggle. And then it will show you, hey, look, the struggle's real. Look, here's more struggle over there. Here's struggle over here. You're struggling over here. Okay, I'll give you more struggle over here. Because the subconscious learns in repetition. And now you're struggling in repetition over and over and over. And everywhere you turn, there's drama. Everywhere you turn, there's struggle. It's a struggle. Life's a struggle. No. You didn't come here for struggle. The struggle is here. If you fix the struggle here, everything flows. Everything flows. You have to allow instead of struggle. Efforting stems from resistance. Remember that. When you're trying to do something, when you're pushing to do something, when you're desiring something, now you're coming from positivity. When you're pushing to make things happen and you push, your blessings are trying to come to you. They're out here, but you keep that energetic force field going. You're pushing, okay? You have to surrender. What happens when you surrender? That energy goes away because you've surrendered, okay? Like this, right? Surrender. And then what happens? Then your blessings just come. And then you receive. It's ask, believe, receive, not ask, push, receive. You have to allow. Non-efforting means you trust God, that God's going to be there for you when you need it, how much you need. It's going to be okay. It's going to get taken care of. I can't tell you how many religious people I know that when something good happens and God gives them something and God takes care of something for them, they go, oh, well, it was a coincidence. You know, and there are religious people that I know that go, yeah, that's all God. That's completely God. Of course it's completely God. God lives in here. The only thing that matters is intention, because God knows your heart. Where's your heart at? Ask, what do I believe in my heart? Some people believe evil in their hearts, and that's them. And if that is them, then it's out of your control. Let them be. Evil takes care of evil. What does that mean? Well, there's only 3 steps, basically. Okay? You can be out on the street. That's 1 step. The next step down is prison. The next step down is graveyard. Because it's limitation. It's lack. There's a limit to how far down you can go. Is there a limit to how far up you can go? No, not at all. It's unlimited. As they say, sky's the limit. Why? Because positivity is unlimited. There's no limit to the amount of money you can make. There's no limit to the amount of good you can do. There's no limit to the amount of time that you can spend to help others. There's no limitation. It's all positivity. Positivity is endless. It's infinite. And it's all a part of infinite intelligence, or what we call God. If you want to call it the superconscious, you want to call it Jesus Christ, you want to call it God, Allah, it's that. It's all of that. Your job is to allow your desires to manifest by staying receptive, okay? So that's open, like this is closed, remember? And open is like this, right? Open. Or like this and open. Your job is to allow your desires to manifest by staying in a pleasant state, by staying in a joyful state. Enjoy. A lot of people say, "Oh, well, you're just being silly. You're imagining this." You know, people were telling me I was imagining. When I was 12, they goes, "Oh, you're all in your head. You're imagining all this stuff." And when I put my name in a browser now, I see everything that I was imagining when I was 12. When you get to the point where you're allowing it to come forward, when you're allowing it to come into your life, when you're allowing the flow to happen and allow God to do its work. God is an energy. But when God starts to work in your life, everything that you desire comes out. Everything that you desire starts to flow. Only doubt and fear push you off the path, push you off your life path. Every time you fear, a little bit, and then it comes back, little bit, comes back, little bit, comes back. And that little bit all adds up. And you cannot get that time back. All the time you spend worrying, all the time you spend being frustrated, all the time you spend being distracted, all the time you spend in drama, all the time you spend in these negative vibrations, these negative emotions, you can't get that time back. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm here to give you the good news. I'm here to show you what you can do. Put my name in a browser and go and look. There's all kinds of stuff. You know, people often ask the question, like, who is this guy? Like, he does all this stuff. We don't know who he really is. He does all this stuff. Yeah, well, I have a busy brain. It needs to be occupied because an idle mind is the devil's workshop. What does that really mean? Well, that really means when you let your mind idle, okay, or when you let it just without directing your mind to something specific, it will attack you. Your mind will begin to attack you. Your imagination will help, and that small little thing, that small little negative thought will become a monster, and it will become big like this, and it will attack you. Okay, so Jay is saying, see you tomorrow. That's my cue. She's our moderator. Thank you, Jay. Thank you so much. We appreciate you guys. So we're going to let go of our international feed right now. We're going to press this button, but we